Hi, and welcome to the Holistic Hub with Marie and Martine, a welcoming, nurturing, and soul supporting environment of all things spiritual, energy, and alternative. Our intention is to freely and lovingly share the personal truths, stories, or wisdoms we've gained, hopefully offering any guidance, new perspective, or light bulb moment that you may wish to take away to assist you through your navigation of the journey out of 3D, through 4D, and toward 5D and beyond.
Hello and welcome back to the Hub. With Dork Martine and Dork Marie. Today we were just having a little chit chat about what we're going to be doing on this very massive Scorpio eclipse day. Beautiful big energies today. Definitely felt the power of them coming through this morning with just how we're thinking. You know, it's going back to those previous chats that we've had around the power of thought and the power of intention and watching those thoughts and not being fearful of those thoughts, but just remembering the power of the creation of those thoughts. So we were like, do we do a meditation with this big eclipse? And we both just felt to keep it again in this really simple form of chatting to you today about the extensions of us. So seeing the mirrors and observing the mirrors in your life. And, you know, I was literally only just thinking the other day about this, Marie. I don't know what made me think about it, but I remember when you were telling me that I was going to be upgrading my car soon. And I remember you like even telling me the color. I'm seeing white, you know, like, and so Marie and I were talking about this topic relative to, you know, observing car as the vessel, as an extension of the vessel that you are, observing anything that kind of happens to you. Like I remember a few years ago when I was still living in Sydney, our whole house flooded and it made me have to look at water. It made me have to look at emotions. It made me have to look at what was kind of going on in that time. So today we're going to talk in reference point to all the ways in which you can observe what's actually happening in you at the moment with all the things that are happening around you.
Yes, we are. So I guess to flow on with Martine with that, because this is what we were just talking about beforehand, is that I love doing this. I love looking, I'm very observant. I love looking at everything as and before I realized it was an extension of me, because that takes time, let's be honest. But at first, when I was really getting into my journey, it was like, wow, well, what are my signs? What's coming at me? What's presenting before me? What's another opportunity of understanding more about myself or my energies or this current moment, this situation, blah, blah, blah. So over the years, you know, again, we come to that point where we just begin to truly deeply understand that, and in truth, this is the truth, that nothing is separate from us, nothing. And that in every moment we create everything as the grand creators and creatresses that we are. So even those simplistic, that might seem really not simplistic and tricky and painful and annoying and frustrating moments, and it might be your car breaks down, you know, or the house does flood, or you have this urge to repaint, just done it, or you've got these things that are going on in your world where you feel the shift, or things are presenting before you, and they could even be in a bang 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 flow on effect of breakdowns, happenings, money going out the door. You know, what are these things actually raising in you is what's important. And how are you responding or reacting is the telltale calling card of where you're at with your energies regarding that presentation or your creation. So, you know, what we need to kind of remember is that this body, in truth, is a temple. You know, it's not just your body that gets you from A to B, and you might look after it or you might give it a salt bath or a massage every now and then. It is a temple that houses your spirit, it houses your soul, it is your major portals, many, many portals and access pathways to your greater self. That again, when we're doing this journey, we think they're outside of us, but they're not, they're all within us. So every time something's going on in our world, everything's an opportunity, as I said, and Martine said, to learn more about us. So again, my house and my car have been two really big teachers to me about lots of things over many, many years. And, recent for me, as I said, it's this upgrade. Okay, watch the words you're thinking, watch the words you're saying. I needed to change up the house. It needed an upgrade. The words that I was using were, it was just this knowing it has to lighten up. I just have to shift out the old. The old furniture was too heavy, too dense now. It had to go. And I had to bring in the new stuff. So then, I'm happy to do that. But then with my husband, well, he's my mirror of my masculine and the old as well, and the new. But upcoming at me was money stuff. And then he was going on about that. No, we don't do that. And then I just knew that this had to happen. And so the paint came in and the colors came in and the change was on, the furniture got rearranged. But this bigger picture was all about the upgrade that I was going and undertaking on another level or many levels at the same time. What was fascinating in seeing that extension again, because he's also a part of me, as I am of him, was then I watched how his journey with the house, while he helped me in certain ways and he came through the money very quickly when I didn't buy into the fear of the money. That was my test out of poverty consciousness, was that we bought the new pieces of furniture. We brought the new into the house. But then he's on the outside of the house doing lots to the outside. He's in the garden. He's on the roof. He's fixing the house. He's doing the pavements. He's doing all the things beyond the temple, which is very much where he's at because he's still very physically driven. So he was doing the real physical stuff while I'm on the inside of the temple, so to speak, creating the upgrade and bringing through the change in that capacity. So I'm not sure if you can hear that or see that, but again, we come together to make a greater change. So as I'm watching him, I'm smiling because I know what I'm doing and I'm aware of the energies. And again, flow in my house is so important. If my house isn't in a certain alignment, if the things aren't clear and energies aren't clear, I'm not okay. That's it. But to see him doing his thing was this beautiful balancing of masculine and feminine coming together for the greater temple, covering all avenues, that we're both working together for the greater picture, which really warmed the being of my heart to say, wow, he's on board. He's listening in his own way. Doesn't have to do it my way, nor me his, but in our own unique way, we're both upgrading according to what's in divine accord and time.
Yeah. And I've got countless journeys that I've been on through understanding that. But my most recent one has been, this year, I just had a client before and she said to me, how's your year been? I hadn't seen them as a family at all this year. I think I'd seen them maybe earlier in the year, but just for a brief bit. And I said to her, like, because I've been away a lot this year, just in bits and pieces. And she said, how did you go with all of, the COVID stuff and how did everything go? And I was saying to her, it was a really interesting time for me because it was really busy from a remedy perspective and meeting all of the needs that were around in that time, but also from a holding space from that anxious fear perspective. And so like this year for me, when I said to her, so I've spent a lot of time off this year, and she kind of reflected back to me, well, yeah, I can understand that because you probably, if you didn't honor that this year, would have most likely been quite burnt out. And it was like the first moment in time where I went, that's actually really true. I hadn't actually acknowledged that I had listened just so intently because I'm so used to listening that I knew that I had to travel into lots of different places this year, but I hadn't really put two and two together that it was a very restorative. I knew it was a restorative year for many different reasons, like the end of an era to my puppies who, have moved on into their own temples and lots of other things that were occurring in my life, but I hadn't sort of put it down to that real need for rest in that way. And I feel like the theme that happened for me this year is we took the caravan away a lot, and I've had 3 flat left tires in that caravan. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3. And the last one happened at like when I was coming back from Marie's, not the last time, but the time before. And we went out that morning. Bye, see you later. Mwah, mwah, mwah. And then I looked at the tire and I said, I think that tire looks flat. Do you? And Marie's like, yes, is it the left one again? And I went, yes.
Because the other two happened with me too on the coming up.
That's right. It happened, and Marie and her beautiful husband came to the rescue after the second one. Yeah. So it was a very beautiful experience to have that support in all of these breaking downs of this left, which to me has represented all of the journeys that I've been on the last few years with this imbalanced masculine and feminine within myself and my journey and what that has represented. And it's been really interesting because when I reflect again on these 3 tires, I think about the work that I have put into recalibrating my masculine in terms of not coming so much from my force or from that imbalanced masculine state, and really harnessing the desire to want to bring my balanced and really empowered masculine divine in, but also the energy that my feminine and my divine feminine and my imbalanced feminine has had to process in reflection as I begin to heal one, so has the reflection of the other. And so this journey has really represented for me this real coming together of my divine feminine, which in turn has then allowed my divine masculine to really be understood on another level. And this is all happening for me because I'm choosing to observe the left tire.
Yeah. Well, I think that what was interesting with those tires too was, they were the original tires, weren't they, on that van?
They are
the first 2 blows
time that they were, yeah. And then there was a new one on the 3rd time.
Yeah, because I think that's again a huge message of that old feminine energy of blowing and really needing to go, and being able to support her, bringing on the new tire, bringing in the new energies to support her, to stabilize her. And the whole process was also about you allowing that support to come. Having all these people come instead of the old pattern of, where you've always supported you. This is really letting everybody come in, doing their little bit from NRMA to us to whoever, but allowing that feminine to receive.
Yeah.
And to bring that beautiful balance back. And this is how simplistic these incredible creations can be if we take the time to look at what's in front of us and what's taking place.
And then what it brings out as a consequence of that, like what then has then shifted through this rebirth of that has been this great new understanding of this divine masculine energy that I haven't had the capabilities of understanding on another level. And I feel like we've spent all this time focusing in the last few decades about this imbalanced divine feminine energy.
Yeah.
We are now stepping into the era of really harnessing this divine masculine and harnessing the divine masculine in the male form around us.
Absolutely, because they're masculine and feminine too, and we're all mirrors of each other, and it's not who's male or female. That's, they're just, again, the mirrors. But we're all here to balance the ultimate and move back into our true balanced and divine masculine and feminine, which is where ascension will ultimately take place and where we'll exist in 5D and beyond. But, I look back at my eldest daughter, and I know she won't mind me saying this, but she went through a run of lots, and she still does, lots of gut issues, lots of running on empty, lots of problems with the gut, churning, not looking after herself at points of time, burning the candle. Again, we've all had moments where we don't look after the temple. We've been there and done it. But her car was the classic symbol back to her of what was going on in her. But, she gets this, but she forgets it, and she's normal going into the old routine and doing the old stuff. And she'd say, this bloody car, it's not doing, it's breaking down, it's not running properly, it cuts out, it won't go up the hills, it hasn't got enough oomph to get up, and all these symptoms of the car. And, you know, I allowed it. I watched it and thought, I'll just give it time, dropped a seed here, planted a little one here. And, you know, oh, as you get the from kids, oh, yeah, oh. And then I thought, oh, well, you know, until it got to a point one night she was really stuck. And she said, I can't get this car up the hill to her then house. And I said, you know, have you thought about your solar plexus here? Because the problem was the engine, it was cutting out, it wasn't working. I said, this is a real reflection of your solar plexus, like your gut. I said, that's where your gut sits. I said, what are you not looking after your whole physical vessel doing? Are you just not giving it the right food? What sort of petrol are you putting in? Have you given any care to the car? Have you given any care to you? There were so many presentations of similarity. And this one night she got it, and I said, and apart from that, what's your anger? Stop being angry at your car, because your anger is the anger you've got towards yourself. And I said, when you start loving the car, watch how it will perform and change for you, like loving yourself. So anyway, I let her be, let her do a thing. She said, okay. And then she ran back and she just laughed. She was laughing. She said, oh my God, the car's going now. And I said, of course it is. You know, and while we think, oh, that's bloody lucky, my husband will say, oh, that's lucky, yeah. But the reality is it's not, because nothing is solid in truth. You know, everything's the extension of us energetically. So we have these incredible teachings on offer to say, well, what's happening with us, like we just said earlier. And for hers, it was all about that engine, all about her solar plexus. She's still got a huge journey with that. Many people do. But, you know, it might be your waterworks, like Martine said. You might have lots of water going on. We've had huge water issues over the years. So I've had to look at my water, my stuff, my husband's water, emotional stuff. I've had to look at the collective water energy, because there's a lot of water coming at our house. We've had burst pipes in the past. I've seen where I've not, you know, released my emotions adequately, and I've stored them. So the pipe was giving me a big sign to say, well, you really need to let go now, because you just busted your pipe. There's so much that we can look at that gives us great insight, not only to our chakras, but to our emotions and to the greater picture, where we can make literally instant change. You know, sometimes the vessel, the car might need to go out of your hands for a while. But again, if that's taken out of your hands, are you frustrated again? How do you react or respond? Or do you see it as another time that, well, maybe I'm meant to be still. Maybe I'm meant to stay at home more than run around in the car. Maybe I'm giving myself this greater opportunity to just be and to sit for a bit, to reflect and to see what's going on in my being and world.
And it takes the accountability back to you again on another layer, which is always the key factor here. It's never, you know, if as soon as we start blaming the circumstance, blaming anything external outside of ourselves, we're just, it's
losing power.
Trick. Yeah, it's the ego trick to try and get us out of where, like, the change that obviously is there to happen. And it's fun to look at it from a whole multitude of angles. So if we're looking at it, say, from that, like, something happens with the plumbing in the house, it might be the house that you live in with your husband and your children, but you might have been away that weekend. So it's not actually directly affecting you, but it's affecting you in some way. It's affecting you because of the conversations that you're having with your husband over the phone while you're away, or, you know, it's looking at it from a multitude of angles as to how immersed are you in this journey. And one of my favorite ones is, you know, I have, like, as I've been away, I've had the privilege of having a beautiful, very consistent house sitter. And she won't mind me sharing this. I'm not going to be sharing too personal here, but just the journey that she's had with my chickens has been like, and we'll talk about it. We can talk about it for hours, just talking about what had happened with the chickens in that time that I was away this time, and what her lessons or her journey was around that relative to, and she, I remember her saying, we just had this beautiful thing, and she was just had this aha moment of, wow, these chickens are just phenomenal teachers, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. Awesome. Absolutely. You know, I remember going back years ago, and I was really going through some big stuff, and I was really getting ready for a major quantum jump. And I was in the whole crash and burn scenario part 3 or whatever it was. of like, you know, do I stay where I am? Am I leaving? Am I moving? Am I running away? I was so unsettled. I just could not focus because I was in such resistance to the greater dynamics that were happening within me. So my previous dog, bless him, he was constantly running away. He was constantly escaping. And, you know, the neighbors were putting, you know, the patrol people onto him, and we were having trouble catching him. We'd bring him in, he'd escape again. And it took me until, you know, getting your head out of the game. And I just sat back and went, oh my God, he's mirroring me. He's just showing me how I am trying to escape from everything and run away from what I had to sit with and confront within myself. And I'm not joking, the minute I sat there and I got that message, he stopped running away.
Mhm.
That's it. And that's as quick as it can be. And I thanked him. You know, I know we've had mice in the roof at times, and you might think, oh, it's just mice in the roof or mice in the house. But again, I look at what room it is. And in my old story, it was an upstairs and downstairs. So I used to look at the upstairs as my upper centers, upper chakras, and downstairs as my lower chakras. You know, the mouse, again, you go to your medicine cards, go to your books. And I looked up mouse, and it was about poverty consciousness. It was perfect at the time. You know, the birds that might flow at you, you might see symbols in the clouds. Take what you can observe, because everything is you trying to get your attention.
Mhm.
And when you get your attention, you've got the next little piece of the jigsaw that you can go to, read, hear, see, whatever it is for you in that moment that goes, ah, and that is the next aha moment to go, right, okay, got it, thank you, needed this. Or, you know, it might be at the moment as well, like, I don't want to do it, but you've got the piece of the puzzle and you're ready when you're ready.
Yeah. And the more that it happens, the more that it's just self affirming, and it's just confidence building in your own intuition.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of times that I've gotten connection with someone and they're like, I was literally thinking about you. That's so strange. And I'm like, is
Yeah.
it so?
Yeah.
Is it strange?
That's right. No.
This is my normal.
That's
I
it.
heard you knocking on my head and I just decided to act on it rather than wait for you to call me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly right.
And we've always done that through the eyes of homeopathy as well. Like, regardless of whatever disease state it is, you know, even though I understood metaphysics before I understood homeopathy, it's still taught throughout homeopathy to look at, if you've got parasites, okay, so what are you allowing in to feed on you? How are you giving your power away? Where are you feeling like you're not worthy? All of these aspects, you know, and you can look at it across any, you know, we take it back to the body, anywhere in the body that you're experiencing pain, anywhere that you're experiencing disease or disaccord. Remember it, taking it back to those chakras and learning more about those chakras. But you can really very simply do it from the sides of the body, and what's being and what that could be for you. So what kind of pain is it can be really like just that the only thing that you really need to understand to know what you need to do in order to listen and truly listen to, you know, how you are going to be from this point.
Yeah. And I think that's the ultimate, is that, you know, as we gain in our wisdom and we walk further along our path, that we are willing to take that moment to listen and to stop and to see what is on offer around us. Even in your most darkest moment and your most difficult moment, the answer is still there. You hold the answer. And, you know, the more in the old pattern of ego that we blame, as you said earlier, we blame and project and we put outside of ourselves, we'll never get an answer, full stop, because you're not willing to stop and to be and to go within to see and feel what you're trying to tell you, what your higher self is trying to offer you. And the more that you blame, the more that you do those old techniques, is the more disempowered you become. And the further away you get from the truth of where you're desperately hoping and seeking to be. That's the paradox, you know, and that's what spirit is, this amazing paradox that we walk in this world. You know, I remember when, again, my middle one, she had hospitalizations every year for, I don't know how many years, since she was 4. And there was one point that she was so sick, and it was usually asthma and her allergies and stuff, but this was different, and we couldn't quite pinpoint what was going on with her. And you know, she would let me work with her energetically, but at that point in time, I was being told no. So I honor always, whether I'm allowed in or not, whether it's your child or not, I honor. And I remember this day I needed some time out, and I think my husband might have gone to be at the hospital because they were day and nights. And I remember going, I was in Coffs Harbour. I remember going to my favourite walk, which was Diggers Beach, and I used to just walk the north and south way. And I remember going up near the Inuka, and there's got an outlet of water that goes out to the ocean from Inuka Way. And I remember just standing there, and I was just saying my prayers, asking my questions, putting it out, asking for the guidance, the wisdom, what was going on here? How could I interpret this? I'm not obviously allowed to go in. Is there another way? Is there something else that I'm meant to be looking at? And I'll never forget it that as I walked up there, again, you've got to be in that space of willingness. And then something caught my attention out of the left eye, no coincidence, the feminine. And I looked down and I just looked at this sort of what appeared to be originally just water streams coming out of this sort of outlet to the ocean. And I just, again, feeling, listening, I just thought I need to stop and look and watch this. And as I tuned in, because again, as you tune, your energies are manipulating the whole time. You're extending, you're creating in every moment. Things don't always remain the same. So it was growing as I was obviously tuning to it. And then all I could see then was the outline of a body, literally just from like the ribs down. It was the shape of a body, and there were 2 legs. And then as I looked and thought, wow, this is amazing. Not even thinking then of my daughter, because I'm thinking, well, wow, this is pretty amazing. What am I here for? Then they were showing me like the river systems, whether it was the energy systems, the water systems. And then I realized I was looking at the energy systems in this body. Then the further I tuned in again, the picture grows, the creation grows. Then I realized, oh my God, they're showing me this is her body. Then I realized they're showing me where the issues are. They're showing me, because then I realized some were flowing and other streams weren't. And I could see that there were blocks in certain parts. And I had my physical guidance of the legs, the crutch, the gut, the ribs, and I could pinpoint, and they were showing me where the issues were with her. So when I got this, it was like, wow, can I use this now? And it was yes. So the reason I've been put on a block was because they didn't want me to do it that old way. They wanted to expand me. They wanted to show me another way, be open. We'll show you in lots of ways. Don't think it's always in one way and one avenue. Let's be open to all your skills, because we've got lots to show you. And so with that information, I went back and then I said to her physically, I've been shown this incredible image. Can I use this with you? And she said yes. And that's when I could go in, and that's when we started flowing, and that's when the answers came, and that's when things started to move forward for her. But she was creating this incredible moment of her sickness too, as she's always done, for me to grow and understand the greater energetic pictures. So nothing's ever what you think it really is. And if you're locked into just what that moment is in time, well, that's what you'll see, and that's what you'll receive through, and that's fine. But keep in mind now, there is lots of layers attached to every presentation if you're open.
And I feel like that's a really good entry point into, for me, what's come up around this moon and the changeover on another layer of what's happening. And this is, again, that extra layer of letting go of that control, letting go that we perceive that we even need that layer of control in. Because if we try and control these situations, like if Maria tried to control that situation, then it would have had a very different outcome. And we often don't know. Like, you could plan to be, at the birth of one of your dear friends, and you could be sitting there going, oh, look, and you both could be very excited about that. But at the end of the day, whether or not that actually ever happens is going to be in divine accordance as to whether it's meant to. And you won't be able to control that, because you'll be taken right out of the picture, because that is a high frequency event that goes down. Any birth, any rebirth is a very high frequency event. Or it's like when I said bye to Marie on the weekend. I went up to visit Marie on the weekend because she had a lovely birthday. And my last thing to her was, well, I'll aim to be there for the next decade, but I won't bank on it, because you never know. Like, you don't know how it's all going to unfold. And I'm certainly not going to be in any way forcing our friendship. If we make it to 10 years, awesome, extra bonus.
Yeah.
But you know, if things change and we change and it doesn't resonate, then it's about surrendering and to be open to that.
Yeah.
And this is all that I feel like is being encouraged of you in this time, is to just continue to feel into what feels right for you in this moment, and proceeding with your left foot forward and your right foot forward and your left foot forward again, to listen and honor to that, but also listening to what conversations maybe need to be had around that. So if I'm using that example of something's happening and you actually know that if this baby that you said you were going to be there for is happening on a particular time, but you know your husband has his birthday or something that weekend, then ultimately you probably know that you may be prioritizing something a little bit differently, and that might be just the way it needs to go. How are you going to have that conversation with that person to go, okay, I see that we're still waiting for this love to come. I have this massive event I'm not going to be able to get out of. I just wanted to have a really open conversation about it with you, because everything's in divine accordance, and maybe I'm not meant to be there. I'm just putting it out there. You know, like be confident to have these conversations with each other as well, because, you know, as we choose to have connections and communications from this place of love, not from a place of fear that we're going to hurt the other person, or judgment that they're going to take it the wrong way. This is where we keep co-creating with these vibrations and these energies.
Whereas, or we should, or we have to.
That's right.
Yeah. And I mean, in that scenario Martine just spoke about too, you know, this is a big one. And I've been in the polar of what she just discussed, where, you know, your husband might think, well, this is my birthday, or this is the event that I have to go to. But my position may be that I'm meant to be at that birth. And so while we tend to do the family thing first, and it's difficult to get out of the family thing sometimes, or we feel that judgment, or we have to, we should, we must. You know, this walk again is learning to step up and to trust. Trust is the word. As you walk it, you gain and gain and gain in your trust as you surrender more and more off to your higher self and your greater self. That, you know, you'll always know, if you're listening, where you are meant to be in the right place in the right time. And you know, you might not meant to be at the hubby's party, and you might well meant to be delivering that little one because you're needed there, you know. And I know in my early days when I was assisting babies come through, and, you know, my husband wasn't anywhere as knowing as he is now, and he's still not supposedly in the wake, as we would say. But, you know, and I'd be called in to go by the husbands or whatever to come and you know, she needs you, can you come? It'd be 9 or 10 o'clock at night. But he would be my voice of doubt, testing me, going, what are you going now for? Don't you know the time? You know, they're in hospital. They can do this. They don't need you, you know. And then I'd have to do the back then of the balancing of, I hear you and I know that. That's the old, but I have to come here. I have to feel that out. And I'm talking early 2000s now. So this was like, oh, you know, but every time I stopped and went to hear, when I'm being honest with myself and I'm really listening, I know exactly where I'm meant to be. And then do I have that capacity to step up and follow that? And that's the test, out of the old, out of fear and doubt, into the walk of the soul and the higher self. Yeah.
And you might not get it. And it's either you might not get it in that moment. You might get it in hindsight. I've certainly had plenty of more hindsight moments than.
And they're just as good.
Yeah.
As long as you get it.
That's right. You're like, you can read the patterns in hindsight. You're like, yes, I remember when that one came in. I remember when that one came in, and I still chose not to listen. And that's okay. You know, it's just about learning from that experience and understanding what that vibration felt like in you, so that maybe next time you do recognize it.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly right. Yeah. Here.
Does that feel complete? Do you feel like you want to mention anything else in regards to the vessels?
No, I think it was just more as an introduction, because I feel a lot of people might not think or observe in that way, or I've even heard of doing that. You know, when I still know I talk to some clients, it's like, oh, wouldn't have thought of that. So I just think it's a great thing to think about, to feel out for yourself. And again, once the seeds of consciousness are planted, then all of a sudden you start to see. They start to appear in your world and you can put the dots together. So I just think it's a fun thing to do again. It's not a heavy duty thing. It's not arduous, but it's like, wow, okay, yeah, I can see this is now happening, right? And it's just that greater observant path for yourself to see even more that you're wanting to see and learn about.
Yep.
No, I think I'm pretty well done for now.
Yep. Now, did you want to touch on the Scorpio moon at all before we take off?
All I was going to say was, this whole eclipse window from the 25th to today, and I reckon up to the 11/11 personally, and maybe slightly over, but particularly for Scorpios, because I'm a Scorpio, this is huge for us. So just for those of you out there that might be having your birthdays in this window period, be gentle to yourself, be kind to yourself. Big purges are on, deep old stuff has been coming up. Just graciously let that transmute through you as best that you can. Keep your violet flame and keep grounded going. And this is, I feel, a stepping stone, not just for Scorpios, but for all of us, that with this major shift and these three, the earth, the sun, and the moon in alignment today, that this is a real rebalance. And I feel on the other side, there is the potential for, a real movement forward. If the purge has been done, and I think we've all purged anyway, this is what eclipses will do. They will be revealing what's been hidden, what's in the shadow, what's coming up for you. And again, varying degrees according to each of us and our souls and our being. But let the purge happen. Don't get caught up if the stuff's coming up. Just sit with it, be with it, feel it, allow it as best you can, release it as best you can. This is a great time right now, tonight in Australia, I believe, or the southern hemisphere. We're getting the real good positions on this eclipse, so we're right under it. Really let ourselves give birth now to that what you want. Really put out the true. You can dream small, but you can dream big. Okay, and don't be shy in putting it out in that movement forward, and don't be fearful if something's coming up that it's really moving you into an uncomfortable zone, pushing you into something that's expanding you, and you may have to leave stuff behind, people behind. Trust again what's coming as best you can, but there will be a momentum forward, I feel, after this, and go with it. And I woke up this morning. I've been purging hugely, very deep old stuff, and it's quick. I'm in and I'm out, feel it deeply, but I come out the other side quick. But this morning I woke up and I just instantly knew I had to call for Saint Germain. And I haven't walked or worked with him directly for a long time, but I just put out the call. I think it was 5:50 or something when I opened my eyes. And I just thought, wow, I would just love to be with you again and to work with you again if that's in accord. And I just sat there and I knew then I had to do a meditation. So I got up and I put my earphones on, and there was one I knew that I wanted. I thought I wanted. And then what popped up was a violet flame meditation. I thought, we're going with that one. And it wasn't, I'd done it before, but it wasn't what I remembered at all. I thought, okay. And then as soon as I was into it, Saint Germain just appeared, and then Lady Portia came through. But what was my big message, and I think this is good for all of us, and that's why I'm saying this, is that the other beautiful being that came through, which is not on the violet ray, she's not on the violet ray, is beloved Kuan Yin. And Kuan Yin came through, and her message simply was about having mercy and compassion for yourself first and for all. For everyone that's involved in your world, your stuff, your past, your shadows, but just to find that energy and to sit with it and allow her beauty and grace to flow through, and that kindness, to find that kindness within you for yourself. Because I know when we're doing shadow work, we can tend to beat ourselves up a bit. We can get caught up in some old dynamics and frequencies, and we might try to resist it and tell ourselves whatever. But just to let that beautiful energy come through, and we all need mercy and compassion.
We all do indeed. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was all for me.
Well, that's a nice entry to let you all know as well that we are releasing today some tickets for our first Holistic Hub workshop. So this one is going to be a 2-part series on the ego, but, obviously the ego through the eyes of the holistic hub. And so the two-part series is going to be delving into the holistic hub's perspective of the ego, the history of the ego, all the layers of the ego, the shadow aspect, what that actually looks like in that first one. And then the second one, we're really going to delve deep into, what that means for us, as an ascending consciousness, how we can support the moving through of our ego. And also we're going to look at actual real life case studies that both Marie and I have got and had over the years. And it's a huge part in this second part for your questions. So the reason why we're doing this live is for your questions. If you can't make the lives or one of the lives, that doesn't matter. You'll have access to both of them. And we're probably going to, most likely, if there are a number of people who can't actually make the lives, then we're most likely going to be open to having another question, Q&A around that at a later date as well, just knowing who Marie and I are. So look out for that on both our social media pages, and we might also do a little video to post into the hub so that you've got really clear links of where to go to book it. But I think that's about it for us today. Is that Marie?
Yep, all good. So happy full moon. Enjoy. Stay hydrated, grounded, look after your energies.
Yep.
Yeah. And we'll see you soon.
Yep. All right. Bye. See you next time.